Hi, it's Craig here, and welcome back to another Easy Home Brewing brew session. Now, I want to make this part of my Easy Home Brewing series, so I'm going to take you through what's called a partial extract. Now, I've done this before, but let's do it again. And today we're using a beer kit. This is a Brewer's Best Double India Pale Ale. The box comes with everything you need to make a great beer. It's a partial extract beer, so it has grains and liquid malt extract to make up the wort, and of course several hop additions. Actually, why don't we take a look and see what's inside the box? For specialty grains, we have 8-ounce caramel 40 and 4-ounce carapils, 9.9 pounds light liquid malt extract, 1 pound of corn sugar, 4 ounces of Columbus hops, and 2 ounces of Cascade hops, a muslin bag for the grains, 1 package of US-05 yeast, priming sugar and caps for bottling, and the easy-to-follow instructions. Okay, so I've been heating up my water here. I've got about 2.5 gallons of water here. Now, you don't need to use a really accurate thermometer for this. They just want you to heat it up anywhere between 150 and 165 Fahrenheit. And I've got about 160, so I'm good. So what I'm going to do now, you don't have to be really accurate with the temperatures with this brewing method, as long as it's in between there. And I'm going to grab my grains. Now, these grains are already ground up in the kit, so you don't have to worry about doing that yourself. And I'm just going to, they smell good. I'm going to empty them into this bag. So we'll just put the bag over the top and we'll just pour them in. There'll be a little bit of a dust come through onto the countertop there, but it doesn't matter. Okay. Now, at this stage of the game, we don't have to worry about sanitizing anything because everything is going to be boiled at this point. So you don't have to worry. We're just going to place these grains into the 160-degree water with the heat turned off, and we're just going to let them steep for about 20 minutes. I'll just give them a little poke to spread them out. And you can already see in the bottom of the pot there some of the color coming out of those. Okay, so I'm going to put the lid on that. We're going to let that steep for about 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes. Okay, so it's been about 40 minutes. You don't have to worry if it takes a little longer than 20 minutes. I actually made myself something to eat. So 20 minutes or longer is fine. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the bag. I'm just going to give it a little poke with the spoon. But at this point, you don't really want to squeeze the bag. Let's not lose that. Okay. And we'll just remove it. Give it a little mix around. And then we're just going to grab it and we're going to put it and let it just drain off. Okay, and don't squeeze the bag. Okay, we'll let that drain off for a few minutes and then we'll bring this wort to a boil. Now, while we're waiting for that to drain off, I'll just take this moment to explain what we're brewing here. As I said earlier, we're brewing a double IPA. Now, an IPA is an India Pale Ale, and that is a beer that has quite a bit of hops in it. And there's quite a bit of hops here. There's I think 6 ounces in total of hops here to add at different times during the boil. Hops act as a preservative. And back when England colonized India, when they were sending beer over from England to India, the beer kept spoiling. So they decided to add lots of hops to the beer when they brewed it. That preserved the beer, so when it arrived, it wasn't spoiled. Well, that never went away. People really liked the taste of hoppy beers, and so that's why the India Pale Ale style of beer has remained. Now, this is a double IPA. What that means is that there's about twice as much of everything. Twice as much malt, twice as much hops. So I'm going to get a high alcohol content beer, probably about 8%, and there's going to be quite a hop presence there. The IBUs are over 100 in this particular beer recipe. IBU stands for International Bittering Units, and that's the amount of hop bitterness that a beer has, and 100 is a lot. So that's why it's called a double IPA. Now you can see the color that we've extracted out of those grains, and of course there's flavor as well, which I can smell. And so the next step now is to basically bring this up to a boil, and that's when it starts to boil, we'll start adding all the other ingredients. So this is dead easy. While we're waiting for that to come to a boil, it helps to heat up your liquid malt extract in a sink full of hot water, so it's easier to pour. Placing the lid on your brew pot helps your wort come to a boil a lot faster, and it also helps to sanitize the inside of the lid so that when you place it on later, it won't contaminate your wort. Okay, now we have a rolling boil. I'm going to turn off the heat and add in all of our liquid malt extract while we stir. You can see how thick this stuff is. That's why we heated it up a little bit to help it pour easier. And we're going to wash out the insides of these cans with hot wort as well to get all the goodness out. Okay, that's good. Now I'm going to use a ladle, and I'm going to spoon some of this back into the can, rinse out the cans, and get the rest of it out. In the meantime, we got to bring this back to a boil. So what I do is I just put it in each of the cans and sort of swish it around. And then carefully pour it into the next can. And do the same thing. And we also need to add in the supplied corn sugar. That's going to give it just a little bit more alcohol potential. Now we're just going to wait for this to come up to a boil again. And we're going to let it boil for an hour, and during that hour we're going to add our different hop additions according to the instructions. When you're adding hops to a batch of beer, the longer you boil the hops, the more bitter they become. They release more of their oils and they become bitter. And that's one of the things that you want, because when the beer is finished fermenting, which takes a couple of weeks, you're going to end up with some residual sweetness in the beer. And you want to counter that with some bitterness to give the beer a balance. So that's why we're going to be adding 2 ounces of Columbus hops right at the beginning of the 1 hour boil. Those are going to get bitter during the boil. The second 2 ounces of Columbus are going to be added later in the boil. They're not going to get as bitter. They're going to give off more of their flavors. And at the very last minute before we turn off the heat, we're adding 2 ounces of Cascade hops, different variety of hops, and that's going to add an aroma to the beer, which also adds to the flavor. There's something called a hot break, and that's when it really starts to foam up and almost overflow. So you got to keep that sort of under control for a few minutes, and once that passes, then you're all right with a nice rolling boil, and you can start adding your hops. Okay, perfect. Now it's time to add our first hop addition, 2 ounces of Columbus. Straight in. And now you want to note the time or start a timer, because you want to do this for exactly 60 minutes. Now's a good time to sanitize your fermenter and the rest of your equipment. That's going to be anything that's going to be touching your wort. You want to sanitize it with Star San or any other kind of sanitizer that you can get your hands on. So now's a good time to do that, because I've got about 45 minutes before I have to do anything to this. Just keep an eye on it. And oh yeah, I also have time to enjoy a home brew. Okay, it's been about 45 minutes. Now the instructions tell us to add the second 2-ounce bag of the Columbus. And we've got about 15 minutes left in the boiling period. Now at this point, what you've got to think about is the fact that once this is finished boiling in about 15 minutes, you've got to get it cooled down. Normally what you would do is get a sink full of ice water, and you want to submerge the pot in that, stir it, and get it cooled down to about 70 degrees Fahrenheit as quickly as you can, because you're going to be topping it up with some cold water anyway once you get it in the fermenter. If you happen to have one of these contraptions here like I do, now's the time to put it in, because you want it to get sanitized. This is called a wort chiller. You don't need one, but if you can get your hands on one, it's very handy when you're doing this kind of brewing, and it speeds the cooling process up a lot. It's very convenient, worth the money. Okay guys, with about a minute left in the 60-minute boil, I'm finally going to add my last hop addition, as per the instructions, of 2 ounces of Cascade hops. I'm just going to give it a little mix around with my wort chiller. Okay, that's it. I've turned off my heat, and I'm now going to start my chilling process. Again, you can do this in a sink full of ice water. You don't need one of these things, but I love mine. And get this cooled down as quickly as we can. I'm going to cool this down to about 70 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, I have my sanitized fermenting vessel here. I've got a colander and a little contraption here. Everything's been sanitized, even the coat hanger, so that I can catch all the hops. And there's going to be a lot of them, so we're going to go slowly here. This also helps to aerate the wort as well, adding oxygen to it. I may actually have to wait for a little while for that to drain out before I continue. It's because there's so much hops in this particular recipe that they're clogging up the colander. But I'd rather do it this way than dump them all into the fermenter and lose like a couple of liters of beer at the end when I'm going to siphon it. So this is only taking me a few minutes. All right, so there's our concentrated wort. And now we're going to fill it up with water, cold water, mixture between cold and hot, to bring it up to about 20 to 22 liters and a temperature of about 70 degrees Fahrenheit. The last step, once it's topped up to about 5 gallons, is to pitch the yeast.
That was really easy. You know, a few steps involved, you can't screw that up. As long as you sanitize and follow the instructions, you're good to go. Got a little bit of cleanup here to do. Gonna enjoy myself another home brew. That doesn't take very long, and it's very easy to do, and it's even easier if you're not filming it like I just did. And I found that very simple. It's down there, it's gonna be fermenting away for a couple weeks, and at that time, we'll do a taste test. And when that happens, I'll put a link in this video so you can go straight to that and check out how the beer turned out. It smells fantastic, so I got high hopes. Thank you guys for watching. Cheers, and get yourself a brew kit. Let's get you guys brewing some beer of your own. It's fun, it's satisfying, and when you do it this way, you did most of it yourself. Really feels good at the end when you get that final product. Let me tell you. Okay? Thanks for watching. Good luck with your brewing endeavors. Be safe.